Hello friends, it's me, and today the odd ones out say Subway, but we say Let's check out food theory, why this Subway gets so expensive. $15, wow. From the food theorist. Together, let's go. Let's go.
Subway is bringing back the $5 footlong, but as the $6.99 footlong. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it. And in a time when everyone's favorite fast foods are skyrocketing in prices, Subway, who always prided themselves on their value being the latest domino to fall, is a tough pill to swallow for customers. What gives with the price hike? Well, if you're currently in the comments typing inflation or corporate greed, you're wrong. Subway is in trouble, and it's all because of the $5 footlong. Hello Internet, welcome to Food Theory, where you can always eat fresh and feel good. But lately,
Hello Internet, welcome to Food Theory.
it feels like eating fresh makes wallets feel less and less good. Some of you may remember the golden age of fast food. Dollar menus reigned supreme, combo meals packed a meaty punch, and at the pinnacle of bang for your buck was the $5 footlong. A filling, healthy, and affordable option for people on the go. It was a massive success, and now Subway is bringing it back. Kind of. We talked about McDonald's and their ridiculous $18 Big Mac, but now Subway is in hot water with their prices, all thanks to their new and not improved version of the famous deal. Because instead of 5 buckaroonies for 12 inches, this time it was a super limited 2-week $6.99 footlong deal. Customers obviously drew the parallel and weren't happy. It's also not the first time Subway tries to recapture the glory of their old deal and the catchiest jingle ever. Earlier this year, they tested out a $7.99 footlong in Los Angeles, which, even according to the CEO, was not successful enough for them. Hence, why the price changed this time around. But this deal isn't the only thing that's got customers feeling worse about Subway. The prices for the footlongs across the board have people up in arms about how much they're paying. Now, at first, I didn't think there'd be much more to it than the ever-popular answer of corporate greed. But the deeper I looked, the more it became apparent that Subway is in real trouble. And the price increases for their cake bread sandwiches aren't just because they're trying to squeeze a few more dollars out of their customers. Their prices and their downfall isn't because of corporate greed, it's the exact opposite. In case you're not familiar with the second largest restaurant chain in the world, Subway's journey and rise to the top is wild. They've been around for 60 years, but it wasn't until the early 2000s that they started to explode in numbers. It took them 30 years from their grand opening to expand to 5,000 locations, but in the next 20, they upped them week numbers to 30,000. They were everywhere, every street corner, every Walmart. Pretty sure they even set up permanent shop in some people's nightmares. They eclipsed every other fast food chain. Wendy's? Please. Burger King? More like Burger Peasant. McDonald's? Doesn't have locations, whatever. Point is, the name of the game for the sandwich spot was
aggressive expansion.
And one thing that sets the franchise apart from others in the space is the fact that Subway doesn't own a single one of their restaurants. Every single location is owned and operated by a franchisee. The other thing that differs between them and, say, the Golden Arches is that Subway was historically pretty hands-off of their locations when it came to promotions and discounts for their customers. That is actually how and why the $5 footlong came to be. In 2003, one owner, and none other than the 305 Miami, Florida, decided that they would be reducing the price of their footlong from $6 on the weekends to $5. And I know what you might be thinking, big whoop, $1. But within 2 weeks, his sales went up $10,000. He started bringing in over 4 times what the average Subway earned weekly. It went so well for him that he was able to expand his empire to 10 stores, each one carrying on the $5 footlong special. Over time, other owners took note and sales across the board for them skyrocketed. It took
Bruh, that is genius.
some time for the big dogs at the company to pay attention and decide to implement the special as an everyday promotion for customers. 5 years to be exact, in 2008, right before one of the worst economic recessions in modern history. And it was a massive success. In a time when customers were looking for value over pretty much anything else, paying $5 for a 12-inch sub was pretty much unbeatable as far as fast food goes. In just 1 year, Subway made $3.8 billion from the $5 $5 footlong alone. That's more than Domino's made total. That's even more impressive when you realize that Subway would barely make money from each sub. But ingredients were cheap and people were coming out in droves to buy them. It was really a masterclass in marketing and is considered one of the most successful promotional campaigns of all time. Eventually, it was discontinued in 2014 because of rising costs of labor and food, but the memory and the jingle still lives on in everyone's hearts. And that's not a good thing for Subway, because customers are calling them out for how the value of their meals have fallen. People are ganging up on Subway, sharing their expensive subs. One user on TikTok went viral by showing off her $33 receipt for just 2 footlongs. Unless that specific location likes to dip their subs in gold and diamonds, that seems a bit excessive for a place that advertised themselves as the best bang for your buck. So let's deal with the elephant in the room first. When it comes to price nowadays, it's hard not to take inflation into account. And while that's definitely a factor that plays into you shelling out more money for a barely passable footlong, it doesn't fully explain why a sandwich that cost the company around $5 to $6 to make is suddenly going for over $20 in some places. The first major contributing factor towards the price is a unique challenge that Subway has in comparison to its competitors like McDonald's or Taco Bell: customer control. At McDonald's, when you order your meal, you're not able to go into the kitchen and tell them exactly how many pickles or onions or lettuce you want on your burger, and they use that to their advantage. For example, in order to keep costs down and consistent, McDonald's makes sure that a standard quarter pounder with cheese comes with no more than 2 pickles unless a customer specifically asks for more, at which point they can be charged extra. At Subway though, someone building their sandwich can easily just ask for more onion or olives without any extra cost. To them, at least. It still ends up costing Subway every time someone asks for just a bit more. It's a small cost for every sandwich, but when you sell over 5,000 subs every minute, suddenly the cost for them goes up exponentially, and they have to make it up somehow. And while charging for a premium topping like avocado isn't an issue, customers would probably not appreciate being charged 50 cents when they ask for 4 more olives on their sub. They would definitely be called out for corporate greed in that case. And that's all the segue we need to discuss this point. In my research for this episode, I looked up what could be the causes of the rising prices we're seeing in fast food, and oh boy, if I had a nickel for every time I saw a comment saying, "The answer is corporate greed, you're welcome," I would probably have enough money for a whole footlong. Or maybe just 6 inches with these prices. If that's you currently typing that out in the comments, I don't blame you. In so many of these cases, it really does boil down to greed. But Subway
Full Metal Alchemist, FMA.
may actually be the exception here. Their increases are because they have no choice. They painted themselves into a corner because they've been too generous to consumers. And it all started with the $5 footlong. I mentioned earlier that the name of the game for Subway has always been numbers. Numbers, numbers, numbers. It was an anywhere and everywhere approach. For the most part, it was a great opportunity for aspiring franchisees. Subway was one of the lowest costs of entry out of all the major fast food franchises. We talked about this in our Secret 7-Eleven video, but opening a franchise is not cheap. If you're looking to open up your own McDonald's, you'd better be ready to shell out over $1 million, and sometimes upwards of $2 million. But Subway, on the other hand, can be a fraction of that, letting people start up their own store with a $250,000 investment. That's why, in 2008, they passed 30,000 locations, right around the time that the $5 footlong became mandated by the company. This was bad news for everybody. See, the problem with promotions like the $5 footlong is they're usually what are called loss leaders. Now, like the name suggests, loss leaders are usually sold at a loss for the company. They do this in the hopes that customers will come in and then spend money on more profitable items. The $5 promotion was a bit different because they did sometimes make a tiny profit, so it was technically a low margin leader. Business
To be fair, the cookies in Subway is nice. Yeah.
depend on selling large quantities of low margin leaders in order to actually turn a profit. And in Subway's case, it went great for a long time because people were flocking to the stores to spend money on the footlongs and other more profitable things like their cookies, drinks, and chips. But when suddenly locations were popping up right, left, up, down, and all around thanks to how cheap it was to open shop, the amount of customers a single Subway would get started to be distributed among more and more locations, leaving the individual stores with not selling nearly enough to cover the costs of the low-margin leader, and any hopes that they would profit were slashed by Subway. See, while Subway does have a low barrier to entry, it's a double-edged sword because they take some of the highest percentages in the industry when it comes to royalties, taking 12.5% of each location's weekly sales. That's half of the monthly gross sales, not profit, sales. Meaning franchisees were struggling to stay afloat thanks to the
Wait, 12.5. Wow, that's a lot.
discount that the higher ups were forcing them to keep up. When stores closed at a rate that Subway started to not be okay with, they finally stopped the promotion. But that didn't stop them from doing everything possible to keep their reputation of being a value brand. They used their app to offer customers super attractive discounts and coupons to keep them coming back. Great news for customers, not so much for franchisees. Of course, individual stores don't have to accept the coupons. Subway doesn't force them to. They would never dream of it. Instead, they'll just terminate their contract for no reason whatsoever because they can totally do that according to franchise contracts. Turns out, Subway has a bit of a history of insisting that franchisees follow what the company suggests. And for those that don't, well, they claim they're hurting the brand and cut ties. In order to not lose their livelihood, franchisees go along as much as they can. But as the cost of ingredients and labor...
So if I'm not wrong, maybe I'm wrong. I think it's called stuck between a rock and a hard place.
keep going up, it gets harder. And Subway is making to look acceptance outright mandatory by the end of the year. So it's no surprise that since 2015, only a year after the $5 footlong got X'd, Subway has closed 7,000 locations. Despite that, Subway has a very apparent philosophy of, if it's broke, keep breaking it. Even though their franchisees are struggling to keep their head above water, they decided to make things worse by bringing the $6.99 footlong into play. Owners have no choice but to up their prices across the board because Subway is forcing them to play ball with deals that just aren't sustainable anymore. But because they've cemented themselves as the value brand in the eyes and memories of customers, they can't afford to let up on the crazy discounts. At the end of the day, while this doesn't mean it's the death of Subway altogether, it does mean we'll probably see more and more closures until eventually the sales of each individual store don't cannibalize one another.
Oh, there was an uprise and there's a downfall.
Expansion of the last 20 years will lead to even more regression until the number of locations goes back down to a point where the discounts that Subway forces on franchisees for the sake of the customer lead to profit again. So there you have it. Subway sandwiches reaching $20 isn't because of inflation or corporate greed. It all comes down to them wanting to be as cheap as possible for you. So cheap that the owners of the individual stores can't keep any money for themselves. We may be eating fresh, but the owners definitely aren't feeling good. But hey, that's just a theory. A food theory. Bon appetit.
Well, thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed. I want to take a look at the meme at the back. Ate half my sandwich, probably saved the other half for later. That's not how you eat. But hey, that's just a theory. A food theory. Bon appetit. And I hope to see you all in my next video. Thank you so much. Subscribe. Truly, thank you all. Thank you. Subscribe.